Okay.
Holly Cotton here, and I am so honored that we have Mr. Eriq LaSalle today. And if you guys do not know who Eriq is, he is actor, director, producer, and of course now author. And he is best known worldwide as the television star for Dr. Peter Benton on the critically acclaimed and history making medical drama ER. And let me tell you guys, ER is why I became a nurse as well. So, Eriq, I've been a nurse for 20 something years now because I just wanted to be in the ER with you guys. So, I love that. I'm a huge fan. So, welcome to our show
So,
today.
hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, I wanted to talk about one of your newer projects right now, and that's your book called Law of Wrath. And when I went on, of course, went to the website first to see like on Amazon, and I was like, okay, let me just look at the review first. Let me go get a description of the book. And the very first review that was up there is by James Patterson. And if you guys don't know who James Patterson is, I am a huge fan of crime thrillers. And James Patterson is the author of the Alex Cross series. I've literally read every one of his books. So James Patterson is co-signing. He calls Laws of Wrath a all thriller, no filler, white knuckle treat. So I know that's exciting, Eriq. And I know you've mentioned before on other shows about being endorsed by James. So can you tell us how that made you feel to kind of like get embraced by that community?
Yeah, well, so Laws of Wrath, this is it's a book series. So the first in the series, the book that's being released on Tuesday, the first is Laws of Depravity.
Okay.
Then Laws of Wrath is the second one. And and then the third one is Laws of Annihilation. So you take on this new venture, you get into this new world. So obviously, any type of validation, because there's a lot of insecurity. Am I smart enough to write a novel? Am I crafty enough to put together a really good thriller? And so to have someone who is considered to be the top of that game to give a blurb and an endorsement like that definitely makes you feel great. And but I'm also equally impressed with just the tons of Amazon reviews that we get just from regular readers and what they have to say. But yes, having someone as established and as successful in the genre as a James Patterson saying, "Hey, this series is pretty cool," yes, made me feel very very excited. So
Well, we'll go into the plot because I'm telling you, like, I literally went and read like about all kind of stuff about the book, and I'm like excited because I love that kind of stuff. And so one question I wanted to ask whenever you were saying it was great to be embraced by that community, did you kind of feel that you were going to get some critics because they were like, okay, so now he went from being an actor and now he thinks he's going to be an author. Like, were you concerned about people being a little overcritical or maybe the expectations being higher because of your status going into this?
no, because I mean I've had experience with sort of expanding my position, my passions, etc. So I started off as an actor, of course, and then I started gravitating towards directing. Well, when I made that transition, it took a while for people to quote unquote take you seriously, and I think that's always the thought and the concern that people have when they're trying to do something that hasn't been done or hasn't been done by them. So, going into this part of it, like I said, having had that experience, because I also was able to then prove that I'm, now considered to be a very reliable and, talented director. But with the author thing, you're fighting for a completely different discipline. So yeah, so I mean, I went into it, but I just feel I'm big on craft. I'm big on studying. I'm big on doing the homework, and so as long as I know I'm doing everything that I can, I don't take these transitions lightly. I understand, what a good book, what it takes to do a good book. And so I, set about doing the research, reading the right people, reading, being motivated, reading a plethora of styles, etc. And that definitely helps you. By the time I did it, I'm just focused on telling the best story that I can. And I, once that happens, then people are like, oh, this is just a good book. I don't care who it was written by. So, but I think people
Right.
definitely are still, yeah, they're surprised, but no, there hasn't been a lot of resistance. There hasn't been a lot of people saying, whatever. I think, I think if the quality is there, I think people come around and they're attracted to it.
So I want you to tell us, because I'm telling you, I'm so excited to read read it, because it's just like the plot and the storyline. So I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it, and I don't want to mess it up again. I don't want to say which book is the wrong one I googled or whatever. So I a little bit about it is that I know it's a serial killer, and he comes out every 10 years, and in 30
Yeah.
days he kills 12 people that are part of like a clergy. So one Southern Baptist, I grew up with my Jesus, so I know about the disciples and stuff like that. But it's just such a unique. It's just not someone going out there and killing people or chopping up people. Like this is, it's almost like you said, it's a theatrical sense as well. Like, hey, this can also make a good movie. Like this is going to make a good thriller movie when they put it into movies as well. So tell us about how you came up with the idea for the book, and then, or the series, and what the whole premise is behind the book and the main character. All
Okay.
that great stuff.
So
Spiel.
okay. So like I said, the first book in the series is Laws of Depravity. Laws of Depravity came about. I read an article, and a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know it, and when I talk and speak on it, people real don't didn't know it. Um, so it's not in the Bible, but it is widely discussed by biblical scholars. And that's the fact that all of Jesus's disciples were brutally murdered, and a lot of people don't know that. And there aren't. It's not just 12 disciples as we sort of, that's what we focus on. Jesus actually had it's called the greater and the lesser disciples, and so that's almost like 30 people. So Jesus was rolling with about 30 people, not just 12. And all of them were murdered in heinous ways. They were beheaded. They were hanged. They were crucified upside down. They were torn limb from limb. John was the only one who, quote unquote, died a natural death, but John was first put into a vat of boiling oil and somehow survived. Then he was banished to the Greek island of Patmos, where he wrote the book of Revelation. So John is the only disciple to die a natural death after having survived being put in boiling oil. So I thought, I was like, there's something interesting here. I don't know what it was. I thought of it for a while, and then I thought, it'd be really cool to come up with a modern day serial killer who's killing fallen men of the cloth in the same way that Jesus's disciples were killed. So he comes out every 10 years. He kills 12 clergymen of different denominations. And then he disappears for 10 years. And then he shows up in another city and he does the same thing. So now, where the book picks up, we're on to what's going to be probably his last cycle, because he's been killing for so long. So when you do the math, he's in his 50s to 60 years old. So he ends up in New York, and that is what introduces us to our heroes. The book is fashioned tonally and stylistically after the movie Seven. It's very similar in that tone, that here's a serial killer who is preaching a sermon with his kills. So he's not just randomly killing; he's selecting, and he leaves these sermons behind with each kill. So we're introduced to our three protagonists. The first one is he's Irish and Italian, and his name's Quincy Cavanaugh. So he's one of the best cops in New York City. He's partnered with an African American detective by the name of Fee Freeman, who used to be a professional football player. So these two are considered to be the best closers. So they're put on high profile crimes, and this is a high profile serial killer. So, and then we introduce a white female FBI agent who ends up partnering with them. And so the three of them are basically pursuing this psychotic killer who's targeting clergy. So that's the premise of it. That's how it came about, just in reading how Jesus's disciples were brutally murdered. So that's what throws us into our first story. The interesting thing about the series is that we have our three protagonists, and they're all very well represented in each story. But one of them is sort of the lead. Is the lead point of view. In the first book, Quincy Cavanaugh, who is Catholic, who was raised Catholic, was himself abused as an altar boy by clergy. So he has this really interesting position of, I'm pursuing someone who's killing clergy that did bad things just like they did to me. So he's torn. And then the second book focuses a little bit more on Fee. The third book focuses a little bit more on Janet Macklin, who is the FBI agent. So that's the premise of the series and how we tell the stories. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now you just made me more excited. I want to read all three books. So one question I did want to ask though, because like you said, you've done so many things before, so you have a lot of experience. You know kind of what works, just being in that whole actor theatrical field. You kind of like, I don't like whenever I see this in a movie, or I don't like this in a storyline. So when you started writing your like the first novel, were you on a track, or did you have some things and someone gave you feedback and they were like, this is not realistic? Or was there any feedback that you got where you kind of changed something in the storyline or in the book?
Oh yeah, look, I have. I'm fortunate enough to have some really smart people around me. So when I write something, I give it to people that will give me really tough criticism and feedback. They don't hold back, which is what I like. I don't need sycophants saying yes, yes, yes. So it goes through a really cool phase of, and then sometimes I'll hand it to one person. For instance, I have a lead female character. The FBI agent is one of the leads. I want to make sure that I am capturing a woman's voice. I am capturing the way a woman thinks and behaves. Now, I don't particularly write them that different. I write my women the way I write my men, as far as they kick ass, they're smart, so I don't, oh, well, you're a woman, this, so I write it that way. And that's why how I think I create really cool characters. But there's also a vetting process where, like, I might give it to you in the process, and you go, well, you know what? I don't think that woman would, in these circumstances, I don't think she would say this. This didn't feel organic to me. So then I go back and I want to make sure that voice is correct. There's a lot of medical stuff in the first book. I consulted with a doctor friend of mine who used to be a tech advisor on ER, and he would go, no, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. So there's that whole process of just making sure that what you're doing is real and it's organic. It's not just made up, because readers, particularly in thrillers, the readers will call you out. They will be like, no, that's
I was
not, no,
about to say, I am so guilty of that. And especially being a woman and then also being like a strong woman. I'm like, now, you know what? This is not how a strong woman would act, or this is not
Right.
at all accurate. So yeah, I love that.
Right. yeah. So that's a really big thing for me. I have, because they are crime dramas, I have a police officer or two that I run everything through, and they give me the cool way of how you do it, what's the correct procedure, what's the, because it's nothing like a professional watching yourself going, that would never happen under any circumstances. So I want my writing and my stuff to be grounded, because the beauty of ER was that we had amazing tech advisors. They made us look good. So everyone understands, look, it's an hour drama. You can't do things like, there are operations that take 3 hours. So clearly we can't, do everything, but we can. If I find, if you make the effort and give people the respect, you respect their intelligence, they will forgive you the minor things. They will say, well, I get it. It's a TV show. It's a movie. They couldn't obviously do it all the way, but you know what? They did do it right. And so that's how I approach things, and making sure that the voices are right, the occupations are right, and the procedures are right. That's really important to me, and fans have really picked up on that and really rewarded me with great reviews and great feedback on that.
Right, right. And my daughter actually, she's in college right now and she wants to be a forensic scientist. And so
Hold on, I'm sorry.
she's
You have a daughter. We have to back up. You have to back up. You have a daughter in college.
yes, I do. I told her start telling people I'm her sister.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was like, going forward, I'm your sister. But yes, no, her name is Rayleigh, and she's in her first year of college, and she wants to be a forensic scientist. And she's grown up, like you said, like she's grown up reading all of those books, and she watches things on TV, and she'll say, you know what, that's not accurate. That's whatever. So I'm so happy because this new generation, they are so informed about all of these things. So I love that you're like, we did it just like how ER was. This is what we're doing here too. So I love that. Now, let me ask you this. Going from being basically every role that you've done, we went down the list. You've been on every part of everything you've done. So, what do you prefer, behind the scenes, acting, or now writing, being an author? What are you kind of saying? Like, actually, I think I prefer this more than this. So, what's your favorite right now?
Okay. This is how I look at it. Do you have one child, or do you have more than one? You
Two.
have two. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You love them both, don't you?
No, yeah, I'm kidding. Yes, yes.
Exactly. So it's a very similar thing. It's like, I love acting. Acting is what got me into the business. That then matriculated to directing. That then turned into producing and some screenwriting, and now to the author thing. Um, each discipline informs and improves the other. My acting helps me to become a better writer. My writing helps me to become a better director. My directing helps me to become a better actor. So they all feed each other. I have a lot of, I mean, pound for pound, I have a little, you might lean, you might have a favorite child. I know we're not supposed to say that, but I would say that directing and producing, it just gives me more power, more quote unquote control. And I don't mean control from an egotistical point of view. I mean control over a creative vision. And so as an actor, you have one thing to be concerned with. That's your role. As a director, I'm concerned with everything. I'm concerned with every actor's role, the writing, the lighting, the camera, the wardrobe, the transportation, everything. And so there is definitely a natural, the more seductive thing about that, because it's much more encapsulating. It's much more, you're just much more involved with so many things. But all in all, I mean, I like it all. I love it all, actually. So I just love telling stories. Yeah.
Well, that's good because obviously you're not retiring anytime soon. So that you're like, yes, I'm not going to be loyal to anyone more than the other because I don't want anyone coming back and saying, "Oh, but I thought you said you didn't like directing or
Right.
whatever." I love that. You're kind of like, I'm not biased at all. I love them all equally. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I also wanted to piggyback on that question as well, because there are a lot of people, obviously, you've been doing this for a long time. There are a lot of people who are looking at you like, oh, wow. So now he's an author and oh, now he's behind the scenes. So, how do you give advice to anyone about longevity in staying in this career?
I think no matter what you do, whether it's creative, whether it's athletic, whether it's entertainment, whether it's, you know, law, medicine, you name it. I think the key is really learning your craft. I think really learning and respecting your craft. And I think that that's going to, I think a lot of times people sort of jump into professions, and I think there's a huge difference between a job and a career. And I think once you understand that you're looking for a career that's long term, the foundation has to be much more solid. It has to be, like you can jump into something and that foundation has an expiration date to it. It'll only last for so long. And okay, fine, you get in, you get what you need, and you move on. But when you're talking about a career, I have, like you said, I have no plans on retiring anytime soon. I've been doing this for several years. I'd like to think that I'm going to be doing it for several more years and finding new things. So learning the craft and understanding and respecting the craft when I go to take on something new, I start with let me learn it, let me truly learn it, and it's good. It's a continuous process. Learning is until you die, you hopefully you're constantly learning, but understanding the fundamentals, understanding how to build onto things. I think that that's the key to longevity. That's certainly been the key to my longevity. And it's been the key to longevity of people around me that I see as successful. And so I think if you're not afraid of hard work, I think if you, one thing I've been always very proud of is, I was raised by a single mama who, from the South. She instilled in us this really strong work ethic. You know what I mean? And so you're not, if you're not afraid to work, I think the world can offer you a lot more possibilities. And so I'm not afraid to work. So I get in, and the results have been very rewarding for me.
That is a great
So
answer, Eriq.
is that the wave to is that the wave to the single black mom?
Yeah, I was like,
Um,
and then you said Southern too. I was like, oh, and Southern.
yeah, yeah. So
But
that's, I mean, I get, yeah, yeah, yeah. Having that, it influences even how I write about women. And so in my stories, more than not, females are the heroes, it is sort of in honor of the hero that raised me. Yeah.
right, and I can definitely say like the answer that you just gave, it is so authentic because even when you were telling about the plot of your book series, you could tell you have researched this. You mentioned it numerous times, different things that you had researched, different things you had looked into. So that was a very authentic and transparent answer because you just said it earlier how much time you spent before you even started coming up with
Right.
the plot. I need this to be accurate. Let me research that. So I love that. I love that. Okay, question. Choosing the field that you did definitely comes with sacrifices, sacrificing family time, personal time. Do you have any regrets or things that you wish you had done differently?
Um, I mean, from a sacrifice point of view, I would say no. I think we can speculate about how certain things could be. I am, I'm very dedicated to my craft. I'm very dedicated to my passion of storytelling. So that hasn't made me Mr. Family Man and Mr. Settled. I like going when I want to go. I like, if someone calls me and says, "Hey, there's a job in London," okay, I'm there. A few years ago, Dick Wolf called and said, "Hey, we want you to executive produce a show in Chicago." I was like, "Okay, I don't have that. I don't have the things that hold me in one place." So if you then imagine yourself, oh, what would it have been like to have, had kids, been married, or done it this way or done it that way? That's all speculation because not everyone that's single is happy. Not everyone that's married is happy. Not everyone that's so I'm happy because I get to pursue my passions. I get to have fun. I get to live my life the way I've decided to live my life. So I don't look at it as regrets. I don't like. There's nothing that I go, oh, I missed out on this. I missed out on that. I think I'm living my best life, and very selfishly, acknowledging that, but I'm living it on my terms, and so there's very little room for regrets. I'm doing it. I'm doing it the way, like, I leave for New York to go promote the book. I love that stuff, and I love you know not having to, oh, I got to worry about this or I got to worry about that. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I'm going. So yeah. So no, I would say no. There are really no regrets.
Okay, so you guys heard it. Eriq said he live his life how he wants to live his life on his rules, and he outside all the time. So I love that. I love that. Okay, so last question that I have, and then we'll wrap up with how people can get your book, all that great stuff. But I know, being the person that I am, I'm very transparent about everything, being a mental health advocate and all the things that happen to us, especially with being in these high profile careers and jobs. So being in the spotlight can definitely take a toll on your mental health. So I know you said just now in your answer you don't have any sacrifices, you go and you come, but how did you come up with a plan of for yourself of how to balance the stresses with the lack of privacy of being a celebrity and also maintaining your mental health?
Well, I think unless one has challenges with mental health, which we don't control, I think the things that we do control offers us choices. I made a choice a long time ago that I am in this business, but I'm not of this business, which means it's a job. It's a job that I love. It's a career that I love, but I treat it as that. I'm a private person. I am a bit of a homebody. Outside, I love traveling and I love going. But as far as if I go out twice in one week, I'm like, okay, I'm good. So I think it's a choice of I don't need to be at every premiere. I don't need to be at every Hollywood party. So I've never been that person. I surround myself with very real people who could care less about, some are in the business, a lot are not. So I have a diverse tribe. And so that keeps you grounded. So every conversation that I have is not about the business. And then I choose to live. I choose to, you start making choices, particularly when you're an actor and you're auditioning for something and you're waiting around to hear and you can't eat, you can't do anything because you're so, at some point I'm like, look, I'm going to go live my life. Either the job is going to happen or it's not going to happen. And so I think, again, outside of people that have mental health challenges, I'm fortunately blessed. That's never been a thing for me. I mean, I'm a little crazy, but not, clinically. So,
Don't worry,
I make
we all got a little bit of that in us.
that, yeah, and
The
it keeps
wrong
things
person will
interesting.
bring it out real quick. You're like, you know what? I thought
Real,
I was calm, but now they brought it out.
exactly. So, so I think it becomes a matter of choices. It's the choice of how you want to live your life, What do you want to make important in your life? And that's applicable to any profession. I mean, you can get caught up in what you do of needing your supervisor's approval or needing this sponsor's this or whatever, and really giving them the power to make or break your day or your week. I choose not to. I choose to. There, there's lots of disappointment. There's lots of rejection. But I've learned to deal with it. I've learned to give myself my 15 minutes of mourning. Sometimes it turns into 20, and then, okay, that job's not going to happen. Let me move on. I'm disappointed. Okay, fine. Let me move on. I do so many different things because I bore easily. I get bored easily. So this is me taking on all these different things is a way that keeps me very much feeling alive and feeling intrigued and feeling challenged and feeling rewarded. So that's something that's very important. But again, those are all choices that many of us get to make. Again, people that have physiological, psychological challenges um, don't have it to that degree. And like you, sometimes that's why they need mental health experts, and that's why they need doctors. I'm fortunately, like I said, not in that position, so I get to make a choice, and I get to make choices on what is important to me. And like I said, surrounding myself with good people is really important to me, and socializing. I entertain. I have good people over. We have great conversations. I love good food. I love my travel. So these are the things that I can make a choice to make sure is in my life and fulfilling me and keeping me calm. I live in beautiful California. My living situation is great. It's very much a part of nature. So I get to just wake up in the morning and look at nature and enjoy nature. So you take what you have at your disposal, what you have in your reach. And I think it's really a matter of what are your priorities. And these are things that are priorities to me, and it affects one's quality of life. And quality of life is very, very important mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and creatively, all of these things. And I check the box on those and make sure that I'm healthy and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. And that's not to say that it's a perfect life by any stretch. That's not to say I don't have disappointments, I don't have rejection. Of course I do. But you also have the power, and depending on how one defines their spirituality, you have the power to be bigger than those things if you are connected to a spirit that is bigger. And that's what I love the fact that it's not just all on me. I love that. I love that. And in the clutch, I have a spiritual shoulder to lean on. I have, so I go, I can't figure this out. God, what do you think? And so I'm glad God is way smarter than me, stronger than me. So I don't have to. I don't. Everything isn't just on me, and I'm alone, and I'm dealing with this thing, and So it depends on how one chooses to believe, and how one chooses to live their life, and that's how I choose to live mine.
That is a very insightful answer. And you gave some great advice in there as well. And you said sometimes I got to call on my Jesus because I just don't know. So I love that you hit all those angles about it. So to wrap up, tell us about the book, some of the tours that you're doing for the book, how to get the book, how to support you. Give us all of that information about what's going on with the book project right now.
So the first book, Laws of Depravity, is officially released next Tuesday, November 1st, and it's wherever books are sold. Obviously, I always like to encourage people, if they can, to support independent bookstores because they're always fighting for survival. But yes, you could do Amazon, you could do Barnes and Noble online, independent bookstores. There's an audio book that will be also coming out. I'm doing a lot of press now and doing things. And my social media stuff is on Twitter. I am Eriq LaSalle 23. And then on Instagram, I'm just Eriq LaSalle. Sometimes you gotta search through because they are imposters, and so sometimes you'll have like 5 accounts and they spell my name differently. But I am Eriq LaSalle, and I'm sorry, yeah. So I'm sorry, I am Eriq LaSalle on Twitter and just Eriq LaSalle on Instagram. And the cool thing, like I've been since we started announcing that the book was coming out next week. I've been getting a lot of movement on social media, and a lot of people on Instagram have I'm also on Facebook, but a lot of people, and I've been engaging with them, and a lot of people are already sending me proof that they pre-ordered the book, and so that kind of stuff is great, but it's having that engagement as well, and people talking, because the book raises a lot of Laws of Depravity raises a lot of interesting questions about right and wrong, about good versus evil, because sometimes people read the book and they actually start cheering for the bad guy. Very similar to how we cheered for Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Like, this is a cannibal, and yet we're like, go get him. You know what I mean? So I think,
I was like, oh
and
yes,
so with
he got away.
he got away, and his famous last line, he says, "Well, I have to go now, Clarice. I'm having a friend for dinner," and we're like, So I think that people with my book, because you have this serial killer who's killing priests that have done horrible things. So it just raises some interesting questions. It leads to some great dialogue and conversations. So when I do book clubs, there are all these great debates. And so I love that, because I wanted to write a book that my style of writing is, I want it to resonate. I don't want it to be something that you read, you give a week or 2 weeks of your life reading a book, you put it down, and 2 hours later, you've pretty much forgotten about it. I wanted something that sticks with you days, weeks, months afterwards, where you're like, I'm still processing, or I'm torn between, was I rooting for this guy? Was I like, I love that type of writing, and so that's what I do. So yeah, anyone that's interested, hit me on Instagram. Pre-order the book. It's very easy, and if people that hit me on Instagram, sometimes I'll just send them the link. You have to, you want people to support you. You got to make it as easy as possible for me to help them to help me. But I'm all over Instagram, so people can reach out. People can, like I said, get information on how to pre-order. Reach out and chat, whatever. I like to engage.
Well, I'm going to let you know, Eriq. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to read the series. And I'm going to let you know, me and my future forensic scientist. No, I'm kidding. Hey, if James Patterson is co-signing for you, I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm proud of it, and like I said, I love the dialogue. So please, when you read it, reach out to me. Let's talk, because you'll definitely have some opinions and some questions after you get finished. So the cool thing about my books, Toni Morrison said something that really stuck with me. Toni Morrison said she wrote her first book because she wanted to read it. And that's what I've used. Like, I wrote my book, meaning that this is the type of book I've wanted to read. And there are a lot of books, and people will say this to you a lot of times. They'll say, hey, listen, the book gets really good after the first 100 pages. You have to just kind of get through and I go, I don't have the attention span to, wait. So I'm like, no. So my books, I come out the gate sprinting. So the very first chapter, you're like, whoa, and it's like, okay, put your seatbelt on, because that's the type of book that I realize that there are a lot of people like me. That's who I write for. And so it's always engaging, because from the first chapter on, And if you go on Amazon and you look at the reviews, people are like, oh my God, I couldn't breathe. And every time I wanted to put it down, I had to keep, reading more. I had to get more and more, and it was scaring me. But at the same time, that's the kind of excitement and the resonance that I like. And then we talk about a lot of the morality and a lot of the virtues and depravity of man. Those are kind of things that I find fascinating, and the types of subject matter that I like to engage in. So if you're into that, I say, Holly, read it, hit me, let's talk. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna be back. I'm like, Eriq. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's gonna be like, the trolls are always on their phone. They're Eriq. I know you said it was good, but I ain't. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure it's great.
Great.
So thank you so much, Eriq. And thank you for also giving us that insight. Like I said, I think that is so important for us. We have this passion and we have this purpose, and we go and we're living and doing all these things. And then it's nice to kind of give people that look up to us or maybe see you as a role model as also some tools that, hey, listen, I'm still going, but you guys, this is a big field. Like, you guys can come in and win and take some of this advice. And maybe just someone that was listening or watching is saying, how do I deal with all this stress? And you gave this whole narrative about how you deal with it, and now they can use that as tools to help them process things too. So I love that. Thank you for being open with us about that. So you guys, that is Mr. Eriq LaSalle.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It was